So no secret, Pathfinder the Adventure card game, 2nd edition. I'm a big fan of how the game plays. I love the narrative RPG storybook aspects of it. I do really enjoy the fact that the game power levels you. It levels you up very fast. It has the feeling of literally tabletop RPG, paper RPG, going at level 1, playing through a story, playing through a campaign, and ending up at level 20 at the end. So with this podcast, absolutely no spoilers. If you're thinking about buying into the adventure card system, if you're making your way through the campaign, I'm not going to give any spoilers here. But I did want to share my experiences with character rankings. And I want to explore 3 of the characters that I enjoy playing, both solo and in a group. When I play in a group, I want to give the other players first choice of who they want to play, simply because I played the game so much. But if it was like, hey, Fritz, who do you feel like playing? These would be my 3 choices based on who has not been selected. I also want to explore it from a true solo perspective, offering a solo experience from the perspective of these 3 characters. And with that, certainly the game works very well solo, managing multiple characters. And I've played that way. But I find some of the hand management a little bit challenging, and to stay focused, I find it better, more exciting, and perhaps more punishing to play a single character. So first time through the campaign, what would I recommend? And again, no spoilers. I would start with Valorous. And this is really interesting because in tabletop pen and paper RPG, I'm always rocking a wizard or a monk. And we're going to get to Ezrin and Sarge in a moment. I usually don't play a fighter. But with Pathfinder the Adventure card game, there are a number of monsters, obviously, to fight, henchmen that require combat checks, and a number of physical challenges. So right away, by going in as a fighter and having the draw in terms of strength as your default attributes and being able to acquire and utilize weapons, that's going to make things a little bit easier for you. That's going to give you a little more diversity in the challenges you're going to face, especially from a solo perspective, one character. Now, naturally, Valorous is kind of a little bit extreme. So on charisma, intelligence, arcane checks, certain traps that you're going to face, you're probably not going to have the base dice alone to make those checks. But Valorous does have a little grouping of blessings in there. So if you're playing solo, you don't usually need to burn blessings to explore and make it through the timer deck, unless things are going really wrong. But you have allies too that can do that. So that now saves the blessings, I find, for those checks. Because again, other characters might need to burn the blessings on the combat roll. Valorous kind of has that covered. And then, of course, pulling in allies from there, you can utilize those to kind of manipulate the dice a little bit further. So he's not as weak solo as he appears, despite the fact that there are extremes. I think that's the easiest character. Side note, which is a nice bonus but not necessary, the fact that Valorous can utilize armors and stack various armors, and a couple of the armors also allow you to reduce elemental and effect damage on there, which is much more important in 2nd edition compared to 1st. That's just like a kind of a nice buffer to have. So I know, based on my hand size, even if I'm making a combat roll that the odds say I shouldn't be able to fail, I can always fall back on the armor. Not that I want to, but it's there. So next that would be the easiest. Mid-level, when I play Sarge, he's interesting. He's really interesting. He has a couple of weapon slots in there, which in the beginning, you're not really using the weapon slots. You're using his fists. You're stacking damage through blessings, things like that. But as you go through the adventure paths, if you acquire, either through a quest or just a random draw, a really interesting magic weapon, you can utilize it. So it has that fun aspect of acquiring loot and being able to utilize it. He doesn't have the armor, and I wouldn't branch off into there. He has a couple of good item slots. He has a couple of good ally slots. The blessings, I guess the will of the gods, right? Being a monk, that's where his strength is. Being able to burn through blessings to utilize his abilities, to stack the damage, to make checks that you need. What you're going to find is, from a solo perspective, he's interesting. Sargon is interesting because from a solo perspective, you're going to burn those blessings really fast for dice attributes that doesn't leave you much in terms of exploring. Where if you're part of a bigger party and you have a number of other locations to explore, Sargon's a little bit weaker on there because you need to hold some of those blessings to help burn through the deck for further exploration, or possibly to assist other characters and see how that works from that perspective on there. I think of him as a kind of middle tier character. Not super hard, not super easy. The focus, of course, is in his abilities and his blessings, but there's still enough slots, minimal slots, for some items and for some weapons. I'm not going to be able to carry everything, but we get to have some toys. We get to kind of play and push through there. So Ezrin, tabletop, pen and paper, face-to-face RPGs. I am usually a wizard, a sorcerer, or some sort of arcane character. And I love Ezrin's backstory. He is my favorite character. But wow, really, really challenging to play. I think possibly even a step above hard mode or insane mode on there. There are times when you are going to be at a major disadvantage, and if a certain combination of cards come up, you are not going to be able to carry the day. You're not going to be able to utilize it. So right away, what we see, blessings. You have access to none. I mean, Ezrin's like the ultimate scientist on there. He doesn't believe in the will of the gods. He has himself. He has his magic. He has arcane knowledge. At first glance, playing solo, you think, well, I don't need to burn through the timer deck. My primary attributes of attack, I'm going to augment through spells, and I've got a wide selection of spell slots on there. So I'm pretty powerful at attacking, which Ezrin is. So the blessings, not having them, where's the challenge there? It doesn't seem as bad as it is. The challenge is his hand size. What it represents, obviously he's weak. It gives you a lot of spells to potentially draw and cast. But when you take damage, you get squashed. And damage doesn't always come from monsters. It comes from effects. It comes from obstacles. It comes as part of the story on there. Ezrin can take one good hit and still probably pull through the adventure path. 2 hits, it's just you're really, really hurt on there. We don't have access to armor. I mean, he's a wizard on there. You've got stuff like, these are the level 0 cards, so I'm not giving anything away because you start with them. You have stuff, shield abilities, mirror image. You do have some spell abilities that can possibly mitigate it, but you don't have the redundancy of those spells and armor. This now shifts. This is where you make that choice, that solo choice. As I go through the adventure path, somewhat at the mercy of blind draws of items, do I get a few that allow me some sort of save, some sort of damage negation? Or, so if I get items, do I stack up on those, or do I stack up on some of the other really fun items on there? Literally rolling the dice of whether we want to take damage or not. Just a choice. The spells are interesting. Again, no spoilers. As much as I want to get so much into the tactics, you're going to have to figure out the adventure paths for yourself. At first glance, Ezrin has, even at level 0 spells, he has a lot of potentials to deal damage. The challenge, though, is even if you use the base deck build, or you want to kind of custom build to start out, there's a lot of really amazing spells. There's a lot of, for the curious and the intellectual of the game, you can think about different ways to utilize these. There's a lot of hidden paths that open up. You want to have a good diversity of spells in there, absolutely, on there. But the challenge then becomes you're diluting your pool of damage-dealing spells. And even if they're really super auto-kill spells, they're not going to come up as much. I can't fall back on the armor for that. So if I can't fall back on the armor, if I fail the attack, and I only get one measly weapon without proficiency, even over adventure paths, if I get a really, really potent weapon that's only going to allow me to win possibly one encounter, now I fall back on items on there. That's the challenge with Ezrin. There's a lot of hard choices to be made. And the other thing to explore when there's an opportunity, locations that offer spells, the ability to farm spells in there if you're playing a solo character. When that branches off and you have the opportunity to pursue that, you have to, because you want to be able to burn through the spell deck in terms of acquisition, encounter as many spells as you can. Of course, then you have to check to acquire them on there, and really build up your hand in terms of spells of what you want to select and what you want to play. That's vital. That's number one. Where Valorous, he just goes through, he acquires stuff, he levels up. Sarge, okay, look, if I don't draw some items, some good items early on, I've got enough blessings I can burn through on there. Not that I want to do that, but organically I can push that out through a couple of adventure paths. So Ezrin, I need those spells. We need those spells. So easiest, or if you're looking to play through for the first time a really powerful and manageable character, and I love them, Valorous. If you're looking for mid-tier, not too easy, not too hard, some really good dice manipulation, but you still get to play with some other toys, Sarge. And if you're looking for solo, some people say Lem, but Ezrin, in my mind, is the hardest to solo, but I love wizards. I love mages.